Hey there, have you ever opened an academic paper and felt like you were trying to read a completely different language? Trust me, you are not alone. It can feel really intimidating, but it's absolutely a skill that you can learn. Today, we're going to break down a clear, repeatable method to tackle any research paper with confidence. And this feeling is just so incredibly common. It doesn't matter if you're a student, a professional diving into a new field, or you're just plain curious. The good news? There's a system for this, a way to turn all that confusion into clarity. And that is exactly what we are going to build together today. So here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this with a 5-stage journey. Think of it as our roadmap, okay? It's going to take us from figuring out why we're even reading in the first place, all the way to making sure that knowledge actually, sticks. Okay, before you read a single word, the most important thing you can possibly do is ask yourself, why am I reading this paper? Seriously, because your reason for reading completely changes your entire strategy and makes the whole process so much more efficient. Now, this is where it gets really powerful. Check out how your goal maps directly to where you should focus. If you're just exploring a brand new field, don't get bogged down in the nitty-gritty of the methods. You just want the big picture, right? So hit the intro in the conclusion. But if you need a specific lab technique, you can literally jump right to the how-to section. This isn't about reading every single word. It's about reading smarter with a purpose. All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts. The most effective strategy out there is something called the 3-pass method. And this first pass, well, this is all about getting that bird's eye view of the paper and doing it fast. And I mean fast, like set a timer if you have to. We are talking 5, maybe 10 minutes max. The whole goal here is speed and just getting the general vibe of the paper. You have to actively fight that urge to dive into the details and get lost in the weeds. So, how do you do it? Simple. You're basically reading the paper's skeleton. Start with the title, the abstract, and the introduction. That gives you the core question. Then, and this is key, just read the headings for each section. Don't read the text, just the headings. This shows you the structure. Then, jump straight to the conclusion to see what they found, and finally give a quick scan of the references to see whose work they're building on. And here's the payoff. After just those few minutes, you should be able to answer these 5 core questions. Is it a review? A new experiment? Does it seem kinda legit on the surface? What's the main point? Just think about that for a second. This simple 10-minute check can literally save you hours of slogging through a paper that isn't even relevant to you. Okay, so the paper passed your 10-minute test. You've decided it's worth a closer look. Awesome. Now we move on to the second pass. This is where we go from skimming the surface to really diving into the core content. For this pass, you'll want to set aside about an hour. And yes, now you are going to read the paper more carefully, but, and this is a big but, you're doing it with a very specific focus. Crucially, you are still giving yourself permission to ignore the super dense details, like the complex equations or those hairy mathematical proofs. We're not there yet. Your main goal on this pass is to understand the data. The heart and soul of any research paper is in its figures and its tables, so look at them before you read the author's spin in the text. What do the graphs actually show you? Really focus on the axes, the labels, what's being measured. This is where you should be scribbling notes and questions in the margins. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The data should tell a story all on its own. By forming your own interpretation first, you can then compare it to what the authors are claiming. If they line up, great. But if they don't, well, that's when things get really interesting. And that's where true critical thinking kicks in. And that brings us to the third and final pass. This is where you transform. You go from being a consumer of information to an active participant in the scientific conversation. Now, this can take a few hours, but it's where that true, deep understanding really happens. So during this pass, you're wearing 2 hats. With your critical hat on, you're questioning everything. Are their assumptions actually valid? Do the results really back up their big claims? What weaknesses did they maybe not mention? Then you switch to your creative hat. You're looking for opportunities. What's the brilliant idea here? How could I use this somewhere else? What's the next logical experiment? This question right here, this is the absolute heart of critical reading. The authors are always going to present their favorite explanation for the data, but good science demands that we challenge it. Is there another way to interpret what they saw? A really skilled reader is always on the hunt for those alternative explanations. And you have to remember this is such a vital mindset. A research paper is not the final word. It's not gospel.
It's a single contribution to a huge, ongoing, global conversation. It's just one team's best shot with all the limitations and potential biases that come with it. Your job is to evaluate it, not just to blindly accept it.
So you've finished the 3 passes. You're done, right? Phew. Well, not quite. This final step is arguably the most important one. It's about making sure you actually remember and can use what you just learned. This is the ultimate test for yourself. If you can't summarize the paper's main idea in 1 or 2 sentences, you haven't fully grasped it yet. Forcing yourself to do that is such a powerful trick. Even better, try to explain it out loud to a friend, especially someone who isn't in your field. That active teaching is a powerful trick for your brain. It moves that info from fragile short-term memory into solid long-term knowledge. Here's a great way to think about it. A single paper is just one Lego brick. It's useful, sure, but its real power comes when you connect it to all the other bricks. As you read more and more, you're not just collecting a pile of facts, you're actually building a solid, interconnected wall of knowledge on a subject. So, let's bring it all together. You now have a complete toolkit. First, define your goal. Then, do that quick-fire first pass. Then, dive deep on the figures. Read with both a critical and a creative eye. And finally, summarize to make it all stick. This isn't just a theory. It is a repeatable system you can apply to any paper in any field starting right now. You see, reading research papers is about more than just learning stuff. It's about preparing yourself to contribute. Every paper you truly understand becomes a part of your foundation. So the only question left is, what new idea will you build on top of it all? What brick will you add to the wall?